So, when I was around 16, my sister took me to our second annual holiday dinner at Alice's house. Alice worked with my sister as a director of a nonprofit that empowered girls. She was amazing. She lived in a nice north suburb of Chicago, and she was notorious for being a good gift giver. She was white, and although she served pumpkin pie instead of sweet potato pie for Thanksgiving, she had a good spirit that made me feel warm and welcome. Alice was married, and despite being a white couple, they were parents to a black child. Sam was the same age as me, he played baseball, and he attended a predominantly white school. I'm not sure how many sips of adult red wine I had that night, or what I could have said to convince her to do so, but that year, Alice gave me a t-shirt that said, "Unapologetically Black," and I remember thinking, why did I get this shirt? Why was this shirt even created? And who's apologizing for being black? In middle school, I was captain of the cheerleading team, double dutch team, volleyball team. I literally played every single sport a girl could play, all while getting straight A's and becoming the class president and valedictorian. Thank you. I enrolled in a #1 high school on the south side of Chicago, later earning a full ride scholarship to play Division I basketball. Unfortunately, playing college basketball was the first time I learned that hard work doesn't always pay off. You see, the black assistant coach that recruited me was somehow no longer on the coaching staff when I arrived. It didn't matter how hard I worked, how good my grades were, my athletic ability, or how many points I scored. The head coach always made sure I wasn't too proud of myself. It was the final straw when we visited my hometown to play, and we lost by what seemed like 1,000,000 points. Everyone played, including the girl who got kicked out of practice, except me. The girl who believed her coach when she promised whoever bust their butts at practice would play. Not only had I missed my cousin's funeral, who was murdered in Chicago, to attend practice, but I dedicated that game to him. I watched my old high school basketball coach and my old teammates hold up signs with my name on it, hoping to see me play, but what they saw was me as I sat on the bench till the very last second ran out. That hurt my soul. There was no one I could go to. The people who made the rules, who had the control, didn't like me for no reason at all, or maybe for reasons I wasn't aware of. I felt powerless. I struggled with depression, feelings of belonging, and feelings of acceptance. And then it clicked. I finally understood my brother's burden, the obstacles that my past boyfriends faced, and even the feelings of my father. Being a black man is a trauma in itself. Being born into a world you feel doesn't love you. Feeling like the people who make the rules, who have majority of the control, don't like you or look like you. Being a woman trying to love a black man is a trauma. And one day, having little brown babies and knowing what they will have to face is a trauma. I love my unborn babies more than the world, but I fear my love may not be enough to keep them safe. When I learned about my family's history, I delved into a world full of pain, holding on to our resilience as both a gift and a curse. My grandmother was born in Little Rock, Arkansas. Her mother passed away during childbirth along with the child, so my grandmother had to go live with her grandparents, who eventually fell sick. At the age of 9, my grandmother had to drop out of the 4th grade to take care of her little sister and grandparents, working at the cleaners, paying the mortgage, and feeding the entire house. She would marry at 14 and migrate north at 20. In 2018, my grandmother passed away in a crowded, dank apartment. Despite working hard, she had nothing to show for it but children and memories. That still pains me to this day. She worked twice as hard as anyone I knew, and yet she still could not be afforded the luxuries of others. I questioned, what made her different? And then I read an article from May 9th, 1960, that wielded answers to my questions. Legislator says the South is dumping unwanted Negroes on Chicago. Rage immediately filled my body. I was livid. What has she done to be treated so unfairly? The sad truth is, she looked like me. My dad was born in 1964, just 4 years before Martin Luther King Jr. was assassinated. I can count on my hands how many times I've seen my father. His mother was 14 years old when she had him, and his father was 17. Because his parents wanted to continue to run the streets, his grandmother took him in. He loved my mother dearly. He would sit on the porch every day and wait for her to come home from school. He wanted to be happy, to build a life with my mother, but it wasn't until he started building that he realized the foundation was cracked. He had no real representation on what a marriage should look like. He didn't know what having a family entailed, and he was dealing with his own childhood trauma. I'm not even upset. I'm numb to the fact of having half-brothers and half-sisters who I don't even know. I can see variations of my dad's lack of acceptance and belonging in my male counterparts, and I can see my mom and grandma in me. As I connected with friends, I realized we were all telling the same story, just with different characters. My dear friend Antonio got into a heated altercation with his family, and he decided to call the police. He was agitated when the police arrived, and he came charging down the stairs with a baseball bat. Trained CPD shot to kill, and his mother watched as her baby was taken away from her. My boyfriend is scared to wear an incriminating black hoodie like Trayvon Martin, and I'm always scared for my brother. In a room full of white people, he whispers, "I can't breathe." Not half as urgently as Aaron Gardner when the NYPD placed him in a chokehold that ended his life. And when my brother is angry and lashing out, I can't help but think, what if? But these thoughts are silent. I cannot break. I must be their strength. So what if it eats me up in the inside? So what if it is hard? We've been let down so many times before. They deserve someone to fight for them. They are worthy of love and compassion. We deserve to feel loved. We deserve to feel protected. I wonder, is this the same strength that caused my grandmother to silently drink herself into a coma? In high school, I loved AP psychology. Among Maslow's hierarchy of needs, I can remember DABDA, the 5 stages of grief: denial, anger, bargaining, depression, and acceptance. There is a moment in time where every black person realizes the magnitude of inequalities, and we mourn our loss of control, our loss of hope, and sometimes our loss of friends and family. No one can tell you how to heal, and in most cases, you are forever healing. We are dealing with our trauma, but as soon as we talk about it, it makes others feel uncomfortable, or we are deemed too black, as if we're penalized for feeling. How do we heal when we're afraid to seek help and support? Who would have known it was me among millions that would nestle their head under their pillow at night, crying, holding back belly-aching yells of sorrow, as if it was a rite of black passage? Did my grandmother cry alone in her bed, a young widow who worked so hard and lost everything? Did my father swallow his black pride and shed tears over losing the love of my mother and the respect of his children? Did Alice and her husband ever consider taking Sam to the police station to introduce him so they would know he was a legitimate member of their community? Maybe I received the Unapologetically Black t-shirt because Alice saw something in me that I hadn't yet seen in myself. I was always asking the questions that needed to be asked and not letting the status quo keep me from fighting for change. One of the most powerful poems I have ever read was Still I Rise by Maya Angelou. Now, let's be real, Maya Angelou was unapologetically black before it was even a thing. I would practice in the mirror. You may write me down in history with your bitter, twisted lies. You may trod me in the very dirt, but still, like dust, I'll rise. Does my sassiness upset you? Why are you beset with gloom? 'Cause I walk like I got oil wells pumping in my living room. Oh, snap. Did y'all just hear what she said? Oil wells pumping in her living room? Total badass. Playing college basketball taught me that hard work doesn't always pay off, at least not the way you expect it to. It may not have showed up on the court, but look at me now. Look at me now. Woo. I've learned a lot along the way. They couldn't break me. I'm a fighter and a survivor, and I've never felt Maya Angelou's words so much. Did you want to see me broken? Bow head, lowered eyes, shoulders falling down like teardrops, weakened by my soulful cries. I walked away from a full ride scholarship and graduated with my bachelor's degree in just 3 years. Since then, I've started my own nanny agency. I'm the vice president of the Champaign County Black Chamber of Commerce, and I started BuyBlackChampaign.com, which is home to Champaign-Urbana's first Black-owned business directory. Dedicated to creating space for all people to celebrate Black culture, support Black-owned businesses, and uplift the community. Define cultural norms, bringing Black Santas and Black princesses. Yeah, best believe that. Okay, stop. Through Luminous magazine, I am shifting the perspective, widening the lens, and telling the truths that are often untold. My work emulates everything that I needed to see and hear growing up, and I'm only 24 years old. But I carry 400 plus years of resilience, strength, and perseverance. When I feel like I am not enough, when I am tempted to let anyone but me define who I am, I find comfort in these words, the same words I spoke at my grandmother's funeral. Leaving behind nights of terror and fear, I rise. Into a daybreak that's wondrously clear, I rise. Bringing the gifts that my ancestors gave, I am the dream and the hope of the slave. In the words of Maya Angelou, I rise, I rise, I rise. In the words of Mariah Madison, she rose, I rose, now we all must rise. Thank you.